The night was thick with the scent of oil and ambition, a restless hum vibrating through the streets of Greenwood, Tulsa. Jazz floated from the open doors of the Dreamland Theater, mingling with the laughter of well-dressed black men and women strolling past elegant shops and cafes. The cars gleamed, the lights glowed, and pride ran deep. It was the early 1920s, and this neighborhood, built from the sweat and genius of African Americans, was unlike anything the country had ever seen. They called it Black Wall Street, a thriving symbol of black prosperity and resilience in a nation still choking under the weight of Jim Crow. Yet within a few days in 1921, all of it, every business, every home, every dream, would be reduced to ashes by a mob determined to erase what they could not control. This is the story of how black excellence rose from the dust of oppression and how hatred tried, but failed, to bury it forever. The rise of Black Wall Street began with a promise of land and opportunity in what was once Indian territory. After the Civil War, freed slaves, known as freedmen, migrated to Oklahoma in search of safety and self-determination. The land offered them something the South never could, a chance to live free from the shadow of their former enslavers. In the late 19th century, Oklahoma became home to more than 50 all-black towns, communities built on cooperation, enterprise, and a shared dream of economic independence. Among them, Tulsa's Greenwood District would soon become the most prosperous. The foundation of Greenwood was laid by visionaries like O.W. Gurley, a wealthy black landowner who purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa and set aside plots exclusively for black families. Gurley built a boarding house, then a grocery store, and soon others followed. J.B. Stratford, a man born into slavery who became one of the wealthiest African Americans in the country, arrived and opened the luxurious Stratford Hotel, boasting more than 50 modern rooms and elegant furnishings. These men, along with other pioneers, believed that if the outside world rejected black success, then black people would create their own. By the early 1900s, Greenwood had transformed into a self-sufficient economic powerhouse. It had over 600 businesses, including 2 newspapers, 15 doctors, lawyers, real estate agents, and a hospital. The streets were lined with restaurants, salons, grocery stores, and theaters. Teachers and preachers walked side by side with entrepreneurs and musicians. Greenwood Avenue bustled day and night, its spirit encapsulating the hope of a people who had been denied everything yet managed to build an empire from the remnants of exclusion. The name Black Wall Street was not given lightly. The neighborhood was so prosperous that money circulated within the community multiple times before leaving. Residents often spent their dollars with black-owned businesses, reinvesting in one another's success. While many white Tulsans struggled to make ends meet, Greenwood's residents wore fine clothes, drove cars, and attended universities. It was a living contradiction to the racist myth that black people were incapable of self-governance or economic success. To those who viewed racial hierarchy as the natural order of things, Greenwood's success was a threat, a reminder that black excellence could flourish if given the smallest chance. But beneath the prosperity lay a powder keg of resentment. Tulsa, like much of America, was divided by color lines. White supremacy was enforced not just by law but by violence. The Ku Klux Klan was gaining strength across the country, spreading its message of terror under the guise of patriotism. Lynching was commonplace, and the mere rumor of a black man offending a white woman could ignite deadly riots. White Tulsa looked at Greenwood's success with envy and anger, their bitterness fermenting under the illusion that black success equaled white loss. On May 30th, 1921, that simmering hatred found its spark. A 19-year-old black shoeshiner named Dick Rowland entered an elevator in the Drexel building, operated by a 17-year-old white girl named Sarah Page. Accounts differ on what happened next, but most historians agree that Rowland may have accidentally tripped and grabbed Page's arm to steady himself. She screamed, and a white clerk nearby assumed the worst. Rowland fled, terrified, knowing the deadly consequences that rumors like this could bring. The next day, he was arrested, and the Tulsa Tribune, a local white-owned newspaper, published an inflammatory headline suggesting that Rowland had attempted to assault Page. Beneath it, An editorial appeared calling for his lynching. That was all it took. By that evening, a mob of angry white men gathered outside the courthouse, demanding Rowland's release. Black veterans of World War I, men who had fought for a country that still denied them basic rights, arrived armed to protect Rowland from lynching. They knew all too well what happened when mobs took justice into their own hands. One white man tried to disarm a black veteran, and a gun went off. That single shot tore through the night and unleashed chaos. Within hours, thousands of armed white rioters stormed Greenwood. They set fire to homes, looted stores, and shot residents who tried to escape. Witnesses described airplanes flying overhead, dropping incendiary bombs, an act that made the Tulsa Massacre one of the first aerial attacks on American soil. The Oklahoma National Guard, instead of protecting the black community, arrested thousands of Greenwood residents, forcing them into internment camps while their homes burned behind them. Entire families were wiped out. Churches and schools were destroyed. Hospitals that once treated the sick were turned to ash. By the time the violence subsided on June 1, 1921, Greenwood lay in ruins. 35 city blocks had been burned to the ground. Nearly 10,000 people were left homeless. Official reports at the time claimed that about 36 people had died, but eyewitness accounts and later investigations estimate that the real death toll was likely between 200 and 300. Many victims were buried in unmarked mass graves, their names erased from public memory. What made the tragedy even more unbearable was how quickly it was silenced. The city of Tulsa, along with the state of Oklahoma, sought to cover up what had happened. Insurance companies refused to compensate the survivors, claiming that the riot was an act of insurrection. The press went quiet, records vanished, and even the local government denied the scale of destruction. For decades, the massacre was omitted from textbooks and ignored by historians. Generations of Americans grew up never hearing the name Greenwood, never knowing that such a place of black achievement had ever existed. Yet despite the efforts to erase it, the spirit of Greenwood refused to die. The survivors, those who had lost everything, began rebuilding almost immediately. With nothing but faith and determination, they rebuilt their homes and reopened their businesses. By the mid-1930s, parts of Greenwood were once again thriving, though it would never return to its former glory. The scars, both physical and emotional, ran deep. The trauma of that night lingered in families, whispered across generations. It was not until the late 20th century that America began to confront what truly happened in Tulsa. In 1996, 75 years after the massacre, the Oklahoma state government established the Tulsa Race Riot Commission, later renamed the Tulsa Race Massacre Commission, to investigate the events. Eyewitnesses, now elderly, recounted the horror they witnessed as children: the smoke, the gunfire, the screams. Their testimonies confirmed what had long been dismissed as rumor. The city and its law enforcement were complicit in the destruction. The commission's findings called for reparations to survivors and their descendants, and though some symbolic payments and memorials have been created, full justice remains elusive. The rediscovery of mass graves in recent years has reignited the conversation about accountability. Archaeologists continue to uncover evidence that affirms what survivors had long said, that hundreds were buried in haste, their stories untold. The massacre is no longer a hidden chapter but a national reckoning, forcing America to confront the consequences of racial hatred and the fragility of progress in a society built on inequality. The story of Black Wall Street is not just about loss, it is about resilience. It is a reminder of what Black people achieved when they were given nothing but the will to survive. It is about teachers who reopened classrooms among the ashes, businessmen who rebuilt with no loans, and mothers who cooked meals for families that had nowhere else to turn. Greenwood's rebirth, though partial, stands as a testament to human endurance in the face of unimaginable cruelty. Today, as Tulsa works to honor the legacy of Greenwood, the story serves as a mirror to America's ongoing struggle with race injustice. The same forces of envy, fear, and systemic oppression that fuel the massacre still echo in modern inequalities. But so too does the spirit of Black Wall Street, the belief that a people's worth is not defined by the destruction wrought upon them, but by their capacity to rebuild, to dream, and to rise again. For nearly a century, they tried to erase Tulsa's Black Wall Street from history books, from memory, from the conscience of the nation. But history, like truth, has a way of resurfacing. The ashes may have buried Greenwood's buildings, but not its story. That story now stands as a beacon, a warning of what hate can destroy, and a celebration of what love, courage, and unity can rebuild. The flames that once sought to extinguish Black hope instead illuminated a truth too powerful to burn, that even when the world turns to smoke and ruin, resilience will always rise from the ashes.